Like, we were like the only black people. My parents were like the youngest people like living in the neighborhood. And my dad moves in and at that same time pretty much decides that he's going to also start representing entertainers. He starts representing, you know, your rappers, your musicians, your actors, and pretty much West Faces Ferry, which was like this majority white area. Like, my dad is throwing Grammy parties and T.I. and Jermaine Dupri are coming over. This is born to the game where legacy speaks in every beat and rhyme. The passionate peaks. We're writing our own verse in this timeless song. With swagger in our stride, this is where we belong. Born to the game, carrying the flame. Echoes of the past, but it's a new name. Through highs and lows, we rise and proclaim. This is born to the game where legacy speaks for itself.
Welcome to Born to the Game, produced by Arca Media Group in collaboration with Inflection Network and distributed through iHeartMedia. This is a space where the children and families of iconic athletes, entertainers, and cultural figures, their families built, but who they were and how that legacy continues. Today's guest is my dear friend, Allison Mathis Jones, daughter of the late Atlanta attorney and civic leader, Charles Mathis.
Many people first met Allison as a teenager on MTV's hit reality series, My Super Sweet 16, where viewers got a glimpse in a larger-than-life celebration. But behind the cameras was a young woman navigating family expectations, public attention, personal growth, and eventually profound loss. Today, Allison joins us to talk about identity, grief, family, motherhood, and what it means to build a legacy beyond what the world first saw.
Please welcome to the show, Allison Mathis Jones.
You guys just made me sound like such a big deal, and that is hilarious. I'm like, who are y'all talking about?
Girl, that's you. That's you, honey. That is all you,
baby girl.
Gosh, can I like get that written so I can use that as like my
Baby,
Instagram bio?
But
Because
guess what? This is you. This is your episode. You're gonna have the whole episode.
well, hello, ladies.
Hi, honey buns.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, we had to do it. We had to. Again, you are our first virtual guest, and it only made sense to have you on to join us and to hear your story. You are, like I just said, a dear friend of mine. So I had to have you on so that the viewers can just see what you've been doing. My Super Sweet 16 star.
I mean, like a little bit of a tidbit, Mariah, that like our dads literally forced us to be friends. Like, we were both like awkward teenagers who like, we were both kind of like socially awkward. Like,
No.
and it's crazy because we're pretty outgoing, but like our dads were literally just like kept being like, here, you're friends. You're friends. And we were like, we literally don't know each other. And then eventually it just stuck. So
we're stuck. Our moms were great friends, are great friends. And so it made sense. And it's been what, almost 20 years.
almost.
Now you're aging yourself. guys.
This year, actually, I'm turning 36, so it marks 20 years since my Super
Wow. Are you gonna do anything?
I am not. I am not. I am already saving for Harper, my daughter's Super Sweet 16.
Aw.
So all of my birthday celebrations are now on hold for the foreseeable future until she turns 16 in 9 years, because I already know that is how much money I'm gonna need to save for her to have what she wants. Because now she's like, oh, Mom, you did this, so like I gotta come harder than that. And I'm like,
Ooh, wee.
We are going to get into your experience during my Super Sweet 16.
Yes.
Even just you looking back on it. But first, just walk us through your day-to-day life in the household as Charles Mathis as your father. I think people need to understand how big of a deal your dad was to the Atlanta community.
yes. So my dad was born and raised in Macon, Georgia. He was the first African American city attorney for Milledgeville, which is actually a city that is about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Macon. And so he kind of set up his first law practice in Milledgeville and then became the first Black city attorney in Milledgeville. From there, he started doing some medical malpractice suits and things like that. And he actually, at the time, ended up winning a settlement that was the largest settlement that a Black person had ever won for a client as an attorney. And so that kind of catapulted him into the spotlight as an attorney. So when you talk, all of the attorneys and lawyers associations, like winning awards left and right, being asked to be president left and right, all of that stuff. And of course, with all that notoriety, my family moved to Atlanta. And so my dad was very much, if you asked him, like this country boy who like moved to the big city, because at the time, coming from like Macon, Milledgeville, Atlanta was the big city. Now to me, of course, I was 4 when we moved here. Atlanta is just home, like it's normal. But for him, it was very much like a big deal to even make that type of move from the Milledgeville, Macon area up to Atlanta. And so when we moved to Atlanta in 1995, he set up his practice here, and the rest kind of became history. We moved into a condo in Buckhead, which, if you have been in Atlanta or lived here, spent any amount of time here, you know that Buckhead is kind of the affluent area in Atlanta. So we moved into a condo in Buckhead, and by the time I was 7, we moved from that condo to what some people would probably call a mansion on West Paces Ferry.
The house looked like Tyler Perry's house, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was my home, and so it just was what it was. But even now, like sometimes I'll drive by the house, like just to kind of, get in my feelings, some nostalgia, and I'm like, damn, that's a big house. Like I lived there, like I grew up there. Like that is wild that I grew up there. So when I was 7, we moved from our condo into this home on West Paces Ferry. And just like for people that don't know Atlanta, West Paces Ferry is the street where like the governor's mansion is. So it's definitely an affluent area. It definitely, I feel like, felt like a little bit of culture shock for my parents, because coming from, even though it's still Buckhead, like a condo, you're gonna, of course, be around more people of color, younger people. Like we were like the only Black people. My parents were like the youngest people like living in the neighborhood. And my dad moves in and at that same time pretty much decides that he's going to also start representing entertainers. And so he starts representing, not lawyers. He starts representing your rappers, your musicians, your actors, and pretty much West Paces Ferry, which was like this majority white area, like my dad is throwing Grammy parties and T.I. and Jermaine Dupri are coming over. So it definitely was an interesting time, like to be a young lady, preteen, entering my teenage years in Atlanta, growing up in an environment where a lot of people weren't used to seeing Black people at the time living the way that we were living.
Wow.
So was there one particular moment where it clicked for you, the impact that he had on the community?
So it actually didn't click for me until I would say I was probably maybe like in college. Like I think that is the thing that so many of us experience growing up with these parents who are kind of bigger than life and, they're well known, is that like they're still just our parents. And so I did not really realize that like the things that I was experiencing, my dad, not being able to walk through the mall without somebody coming up, things like that. I didn't really realize that that was not normal until I think I got to college and I started, kind of branching out, meeting different people and meeting people who did not know anything about me, anything about my dad, and kind of describing to them like, oh yeah, well, like, this person used to come over all the time, or this used to happen all the time, and then being like, wait, what? Like, that is not normal. And me being like, oh, okay.
So how would you describe your dad?
My dad was the most down-to-earth man that you would ever meet. Like I said, like he very much was if you asked him, just like a country attorney, like who just moved up to Atlanta, and he literally never changed. He was very, very personable, very, very kind, very, very giving, and very, very, very down to earth. Definitely one of those people where like you can kind of move him to the city, but you were not taking like those country roots away from him. And even still, when I meet people, now, and I'll sometimes meet people that I know them, but they don't quite know who I am, because also, little tidbit, I'm my dad's youngest child. And so people still refer to me as the baby. And like when they see me in public and they're like, I have on a ring, I have 2 kids, they're like, wait, what? Aren't you still 12? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm actually a little older than that now. So sometimes I'll meet people and I'll say like, oh, I think you probably know my older sister. Like, I'm Charles Mathis's youngest daughter. And the number one thing that people say is like, your dad taught me so much. Your dad took me under his wing and mentored me. Your dad gave to my organization. And so I think that giving and always willing to give back and kind of help other people to establish themselves, in whatever field they were looking to establish themselves in, that is like the one thing that I would say describes my dad perfectly.
And that perfectly segues into my next question, because I was going to ask you, what values did he instill in you?
My dad always taught me to be humble, and he always taught me to take other people along with you. I remember, growing up and having the opportunity to go on different trips, to attend different shows and things like that. And my dad was always like that parent that was like, bring some friends with you. And when I was younger, I think that I thought that he just wanted me to have friends with me so that I was entertained. But as I grew up, I began to see that he wanted me to bring friends with me because he wanted me to learn the importance of like sharing, and that if we're not giving back and kind of helping others to, also experience the things that we are experiencing, then it's pretty much all in vain. And so I would say humility would be the first one. And the second one would be to not be successful on my own, but to try to make others successful as well. My dad was like so big on community, and that is something that now like is, I think, central in what I'm building myself. Is it's all about community, it's all about giving back, and it's all about mentoring not only like the next generation but our peers, because we all have something that we can learn from each other, and there is room for all of us to be great, especially if we're willing to work together and hold hands and literally just lift each other up as we go.
I love that. Yes, my dad is pretty much the same way, like share the wealth. And I love what you just said. There's room for all of us to eat at the table. So
And it's not that we're going to build a bigger table and make room.
Period. Exactly. Did you feel any sense of pressure to live up to certain expectations because of who your dad was?
Absolutely. And again, so I have a master's degree now in marriage and family therapy. And so I psychoanalyze myself quite a lot, right? And so what I realized is that not only being Charles Mathis's daughter, but also being the youngest, I felt a lot of pressure to succeed and to make sure that my life looked a certain way. I think especially coming off of my Super Sweet 16, which I know we're gonna get into, I felt like I was kind of like a representation of my dad and his success. You know what I'm saying? Like I was the fact that Charles Mathis succeeded and the fact that he made it to a certain level personified, right? And so I definitely didn't want to misrepresent that or let him down or let anybody down. And then also, I think just like having a dad, like my dad was also, I guess this goes without saying, he was like really smart. I guess, of course, like how could he be this so smart? And so like he really valued like education and all that. And so even when it just came down to like my grades, like things like that, I definitely felt the pressure to be like, okay, like my daddy's smart. Like he has kind of high standards when it comes to grades and what college I'm going to and, all those things.
So before we do dive into your My Super Sweet 16 journey, what's one thing about your dad that people just didn't get to see?
That is such a hard question. And the reason that it's a hard question is because my dad's gift and curse was that he really had no private life. Like the doors to our home were always open. It could be Christmas Day, and my dad would call someone, and like literally we'd end up with a house full of people, and I'm still in my pajamas, like playing on the floor with my toys, and now we have there's a Christmas party, and I'm like, what is going on? My dad gave so much of himself to the community and to Atlanta that, to be quite honest and to be transparent, sometimes it felt like me and my mom in particular just got the leftovers because he gave so much. And so I don't really feel like there's anything that people didn't see, because he was always, open door policy. He definitely was not a shy guy by any means, and he was always authentically him.
I love that. I really do love that for you. And my dad, again, I remember stories of my dad saying that he would, I'm going over to Charles's house, and I'm like, okay, have a good time. So, yes, definitely your dad had an open door policy. And again, that's something that even years later, we still talk about and just enjoy that about him. So I think that perfectly segues into us talking about your My Super Sweet 16 journey and what that experience was like for you, and how that was like even for your dad, because I know that probably cost him a little bit of.
This was my dad's party. I got to put that out there. My dad literally okay, let me just set the stage, right? So I am 15 years old. It is the summer before I turned 16. It is very beginning of the summer. My birthday is at the end of the summer in August. So it's June. Me and my family are, I want to think, in Myrtle Beach, because this is back when Myrtle Beach was totally a thing, and everyone loved to go to Myrtle Beach during the summer because they had teen clubs and your parents would let you be grown. We're in Myrtle Beach. Me and my sister, who is a great deal older than me. I won't out her and say how much. She's a lot older than me. We're sitting and we're watching MTV. It's raining outside, and there's a Sweet 16 marathon on. And so we're watching all these parties, and we're just hee hee ha ha, we could totally do this. We could totally pull off a party like this. But we're joking. You know what I'm saying? We're just whatever. Don't think anything else of it. Meanwhile, as the summer goes on, I actually am turning 16 this summer. And so I asked my dad if I can have a 16th birthday party. We go back and forth, are we going to do it at the house? Are we going to do it somewhere else? My dad's sure, you can have a 16th birthday party. We'll do it. So we start to plan a 16th birthday party. Now, it was already a bit over the top, I will say. But it was not a My Super Sweet 16 party. It was a birthday party. You know what I'm saying? Next thing I know, my dad comes home one day, and it has to be late July, early August at this point. My birthday is at the end of August. My dad comes home one day, and he's like, yeah, someone from MTV called, and they heard about your party, and they wanted to know if you wanted to be on some show. And I'm like, wait, what? So of course I call my sister. I'm like, you're not going to believe. And she's like, oh yeah, I know. Daddy talked to me earlier. She's like, we were just talking about it. Should we do it? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so then from that point, my party that I was having, my dad took it and he ran with it and he made it his own. And so transparently, I will say celebrity appearances, stuff like that. That was not something that we were initially planning to have until after, my dad decided that we then needed a marching band and we needed celebrity appearances and we needed all the things. So
you needed Peachtree Street to be shut off. That's the one thing I remember from watching the episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, I will never forget that, because I remember watching the episode and it was just whoa, that was crazy.
And the funny thing about Peachtree Street being shut down, because that's the one thing that I feel I kind of caught flack about, was shutting down Peachtree Street, is that if you know Peachtree Street, we did shut down Peachtree Street, but we shut down one lane of Peachtree Street, and Peachtree Street was still actually totally operational, but it's okay.
Like operational.
Yeah, people could still drive, up Peachtree Street on the
Well,
other
you can completely just, just make Atlanta's traffic worse than it already is.
Yeah, this was 2006. It was different.
Right. Okay, so Peachtree Street was still operational, but did you realize how big the show was? I mean, you said you were watching a marathon, but like, did you know that was like a huge deal to even actually get on? And also, like, how do they find out that you're having a party? Like, how did that happen?
So I think they found out just because my dad was relatively like plugged in the entertainment world at this time. Like I said, he was already representing, by the time I was 16, quite a few celebrity clients. And my dad was like a talker. And so all I can imagine was that he starts talking about this party and then someone's kind of like, wait, oh, I know somebody with MTV. And, it just went from there. In terms of knowing how big of a deal it was, though, like, I remember kind of being shocked that I was on there, like that I was going to be on there, because I used to watch it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I want to think, I can't remember, but I want to think that my episode is like season 3 or 4. So I had been watching the show, like 4 seasons, and like seeing these parties, and like the party that I think I envisioned in my head, I kind of had a hard time computing, like, how is my party gonna like compare to like those parties? You know what I'm saying? And so even now, like, looking back, of course, like I said at the beginning, it's been 20 years. People on social media will often tell me that my party was their favorite party. And I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, like, how did we pull that off?
Yours and Tiana Taylor's have been my favorites so far. Like,
Yeah.
literally, I still remember Tiana Taylor's. But you've showed it to Harper. So watching it back with her, how is that? And
Yeah.
like when you're going back and explaining stuff to her.
So both of my kids have seen my Sweet 16, and they think it's hilarious up until the point where I get thrown up on, and that is very traumatic for my daughter. She is like very empathetic, and she is like still kind of like, I feel all of your feelings. Like, that must have been the worst thing that ever happened to you. Like, she'll literally be like, I'm so sorry that happened. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. My son, he finds it funny. And then he's like, he has a ton of questions because we're in the vomit and poop phase anyway. So he, anytime that vomit or poop are involved, he's going to already have a million questions. And especially like with it on me, he's like, well, what it feel like? What it smell like? Like, let's get
What
in.
does it smell like?
Let's dive in. Like, give me details about the throw up experience. But it is something that's really, really funny to watch back with my kids. I don't love watching it. I think that many of us who find ourselves on TV or podcasting or radio, the strange thing is we don't love to hear our own voices, which is weird because we talk on microphones. But listening to it back and then like listening to it as me as a teenager is like kind of cringy for me. However, I love that there are moments between me and my dad that are now like captured on camera forever.
Paralyzed. That's so
I get to go back and watch them. My kids get to watch them. Of course, whenever we watch it, which we don't watch it often, we maybe watch it once a year, but it brings up, oh, like my kids are asking, what was your dad like? Things like that. So it's really special to be able to show them.
Yeah. So did being on TV, did that change anything for you? Like, did you like being on TV? Were you like, oh, I like being on TV? Or what was that like for you? And also like just your experience after being on the show and then going back out into the community and school, what was that like?
Yeah, I think that being on the show gave me really tough skin. To be 16 and that's obviously for a young lady in particular, it's a really pivotal time. Like, you're definitely finding yourself. And to be 16, and even though I realize now my life wasn't normal necessarily, I wasn't living under a microscope. People weren't really watching me and what I was doing until post Sweet 16. And so going from being, yes, maybe a girl that had, more experiences and that, things like that, to a girl that people knew and people had opinions about, it was definitely a transition. I say that my parents did a really, really good job, though, in making sure that I didn't let it change me. After, I think probably about a month after the show aired, they kind of let me do what I wanted, and then I wasn't really even allowed to, at this time there were like chat rooms and things, because this was early 2000s. Like I wasn't allowed to go on those anymore because they started to see that I was like, you know, taking some stuff personally. So they were like, nah, like no more looking. Like you live your life. Like you live your life as if this never happened. And so that's what I did. You know, I went to the University of Miami for college. Occasionally, yes, I would get the, oh, you're that girl from my Super Sweet 16. But I don't feel like going forward, it really changed the trajectory of my life for better or for worse.
Cool. Really cool. Well, it was an outstanding party, and it was a party that I felt like I was at too, and I was. I was
Mariah, you were there, right?
I was gonna say,
I thought so. I don't know.
I don't think I was there, and I'm still shitty about it because I don't think we met yet. I don't think we met until after your party. I don't think so, because Tamara was asking me, and I was like, I don't think I was there.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why in my head I thought you were there, but there was a lot of people there, and somehow there were people I didn't even know there. So,
but yours wasn't at Justin's, right?
It was at Justin's.
So maybe because I remember being at Justin's. So I actually think I was at your party, Allison.
Yeah. I did not know if he was at the Sweet 16
because
party.
I didn't know if it was Allison's or someone else's. Because there was another person. There was another guy from Atlanta who had it on.
So Aaron Reed was on there. I was on there, and then Quincy.
That's what
But Quincy's wasn't at Justin's because I went to Quincy's. His was after mine.
But Mariah,
I was at one house. I thought I could have been at Quincy's.
No, Carlicia Levert, hers was in Atlanta as well. Like we actually the Atlanta teenagers back in the 2000s. Apparently we were doing things.
Lit. Y'all was
litty, okay?
Now, the question that I do have, so back when my Super Sweet 16 was coming up and was popular, it was before social media was a thing.
Yes.
So now, 16-year-olds, they are growing up under the influence of social media. Would you be on my Super Sweet 16 in 2026?
or let your daughter do something.
Or let your daughter be on it in 2026.
I'm going to probably say no. I feel like I was saying about those chat rooms, like that was already a lot. You know what I'm saying? And imagine like with Instagram and TikTok and just like the constant accessibility, you know, I think it would have been too much for me mentally. And I think it would be too much for just about any teenager. Like I said, even now I get tons of comments on social media about my Sweet 16, and some people will even say to me, some of my like close friends who know that like honestly Sweet 16, like I'm not gonna say who cares, but like it's not a huge part of my life anymore, but they will say to me like, why do you still talk about your Sweet 16 on social media when it's been 20 years? And I'm like, because people still ask about it. Like people literally will come into my comments and be like, hey, yeah, I love this day in the life, but like, do you still have your dress from my Super Sweet 16? And I'm like, y'all, no. But, you know, like, people are very much still interested in it. And so I cannot imagine doing it now and how much more interested they would be in it if it were current, you know?
Well, the thing is it's a part of the culture. If you think about it, remember it was Pimp My Ride.
Yeah.
What was it? What's the other one? Crib? What was the Crib?
Yeah.
Crib. And so all those shows, I mean, we all remember them. We all watched them religiously. So it's the show really was a part of our culture growing up. So
True.
They don't probably do it as much anymore, but the relevancy is we all remember it. Just like we remember Different World and all those other good shows back, you know, back during that time. So it makes sense. It really does.
And baby, I was locked in. We were locked in.
All those MTV shows, I used to watch all of that. The Real World, I'm dating myself.
The Real World, love that.
I used to watch all that.
Yes.
For real. So.
Well, it was a beautiful part of your journey. And, you know, now that you're 20 years removed, we're going to get into what you're doing now.
I do have one more question, though. I got one more question.
Girl. Yes.
Before we move on, Allison, I have one more question. How do you separate who Allison really is from the version people think they know?
So that's a really good question. And, you know, earlier in the episode when I was talking about my dad, I think I was talking about his authenticity. And I think that's something that kind of passed along to me. I don't necessarily think that there are multiple versions of Allison. You know what I'm saying? I think that I am pretty authentically myself. Now, what I will say is, like, in the lens of Sweet 16, I have to remind people often that I was 16. I was very much a child on reality TV. So some of the things that I did and said, yes, they were immature because I was immature because I was 16. And so in that respect, I I can kind of separate myself a little bit, like the grown-up version of me versus the 16-year-old version of me, because of course, like, I would hope that, I've grown a ton since then. However, I don't really necessarily feel like there are just these two distinct versions of me. I kind of feel like, with me, what you see is kind of what you get. I'm my daddy's daughter, and we're just a country family that with our roots in Milledgeville and Macon, who moved up to Atlanta, and here we are.
I love that. What is the biggest misconception people have about you because of the show?
I think I would say, especially back then, people definitely assumed that I was very, very, very bratty, and bougie I am. Spoiled, yes.
Love that.
But like selfish and bratty, not so much. Never really been that girl. Like I said, humility was always like very, very important to my parents. So I would say that was probably the biggest misconception people had of me, and the thing that initially I felt like I tried the hardest to kind of counteract. And then, after a while, I just decided I didn't really care. And so I just let people think what they want and keep on living my life. But yeah.
Period.
So what is the difference between bougie and bratty? Because I'm
Okay.
like, is there a huge difference?
I feel like there is, right? I feel like when you're bougie, it's when you like nice things and you like things a certain way. When you're bratty, it's when you're going to treat people a certain way as a result of being bougie. I'm bougie, but I'm not going to be rude to you. I'm bougie, but we can still go to Waffle House. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like,
But it's also like you expect it, like you're entitled, like the bratty.
yeah,
like
entitlement piece too.
Yeah.
And then I
I always thought bougie meant entitled, and that's why I hate it when people labeled me as bougie, because I'm like,
No.
I will stay at, I will go to McDonald's, Waffle House, I will stay at a 2-3-star hotel. Like, don't get me wrong, I do like the finer things, but I don't have to have it.
But I wouldn't even call you bougie though. Like you're
Yeah,
not
that's what I'm saying.
about bougie to me. You know what I'm saying? That's not
But
bougie.
see,
You're
I
not
think
bougie.
also, like, the thing that I say a lot is that, like, there's a difference between being spoiled and being selfish. I think that's a big one. Because, like, okay, would I prefer to stay at the Four Seasons over the Holiday Inn? Yes, but like, if we're going somewhere and the Holiday Inn is where we're staying, then that's where we're staying. Like,
See, Mariah, we love a Residence Inn.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're right next to the Four Seasons, but we like the Residence Inn.
We can stay at a Residence Inn quickly, honey. Okay, that's why
We love the refrigerator and the microwave.
that's why I want to make sure we set the record straight, because people will automatically look at us and be like, "Oh, they're bratty, spoiled, bougie," and I'm like, hold on a second. That's not even true. Okay, maybe a little bit, but not
all the time.
Not all the time, guys. Okay, good to know. So now that we talked about what people saw, I think now it's a good opportunity for us just to talk about who Allison is today, and what you are doing, and what your passions are, what you feel like your purpose is. So if you were to describe yourself in one word, who is Allison today?
In one word.
One word.
Oh, it's pressure, but you can do it. You can do hard things, Allison.
One word. I mean, we already threw out bougie, the brat. So give me one word to describe Allison Mathis Jones in 2026.
So the one word that I think I would use, and this is probably going to throw y'all for a loop, is multifaceted, because I feel like I am a person who I've done and am doing like so many things. Like, when I look back at like the life that I have lived in these almost 36 years, I am like, how have I done all this? Like, how has all this happened to me? How have I fit all this in? Like, Whoa. So I think I would say multifaceted because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a content creator, I'm a realtor, I've written a children's book. Like, I just, I'm multifaceted.
You're doing all the things. So out of, all the things that you have accomplished, that you are continuing to accomplish, what's the most important thing for you right now?
I think right now, the most important thing for me is kind of finding myself outside of being a wife and a mother. My kids are still relatively young, they're 4 and 6, and so they still take a lot of time and attention, as I'm sure you guys know and can imagine. However, I don't have babies anymore, and I'm not having any more babies, and so I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, okay, yes, my kids still need me. I'm still PTA mom, still all of that. But there also is space for me to have my own identity outside of them, outside of this house. And so I am really focused on building that both personally and professionally right now, which is a fun journey to be on.
So I've known you for almost 20 years, and so I know your journey. And before we talk about just the struggles that a lot of women and mothers and wives deal with when they're trying to navigate motherhood and wifeyhood and also trying to pursue their own careers and figure out their purpose and their passions and their identity, we'll get into that. That's going to be my next question. But before we get into it, what is it that you are working on currently? Can you give us a list of all the projects and your passions that you're doing right now?
So I am a content creator. That is kind of my job day to day. So people use the term influencer and content creator interchangeably. They're not exactly the same thing, and I am kind of both, which is why I can kind of say that they're not exactly the same thing. And so personally, I work with brands and businesses as an influencer to promote their products and such on social media and create content for them that is promoting their products. But then I also just launched a separate business as a content creator, and that business is called Moments to Media Content Co. And what we are all about is helping businesses and brands represent themselves on social media. What I would say is kind of different between like being a social media manager and a content creator is that you can still totally have a separate social media manager, but sometimes what happens is that the social media manager doesn't have any actual content to post. And so the social media manager is like, yeah, I can come up with this whole plan of what we're going to do XYZ, but I don't have any actual content. And so that's where Moments to Media comes in. We offer content days for just about any kind of business you can imagine. So interior decorators, attorneys, estheticians, like anyone, we will come in. We have, hourly packages where we can set up a content day. We can get behind the scenes content day and the live content of you and your product or your service, and then we go and we produce social media ready content out of that your social media manager can take and post. We also do event coverage, which is really fun. So weddings, birthday parties, all the things. A lot of people want social media ready content that they can share showing the event that they hosted or showing their wedding or XYZ, and that's something else that we offer.
You light up talking about it.
I know. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun with it.
Yes, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm getting to go to a lot of cool events. I'm getting to meet a lot of business owners, small business owners and kind of bigger business owners, and just kind of help them showcase what they do and what they're all about on social media, which is really, really fun. Like I said, my background, I have a degree in public relations and marketing, so my background is already kind of in stuff like this, and then I kind of transitioned to being an influencer just because of my Super Sweet 16 and life, and so it kind of just seamlessly happened. And after having quite a few people come to me and say like, hey, like, can you help me create content for XYZ? I was like, oh, people need this, and so here we are.
That was my next question, is what made you make it a business? Because you were just doing it for yourself. So that answers the question of that. I love that how you can create a cash flow or an influence out of a pain point. You know what I'm saying? People need something and you have the answer. That's really cool.
Yes, people were literally like, okay, like we see how you do your own content. You obviously have the eye for it. Like, oh, can you come to this event? And like, we just want a recap of our grand opening. And that was like, after, the fifth person asks you, you're like, well, okay, like I guess this is what people need. So,
I love that. I love that. So, Mariah, has anybody asked you 5 times to do something? The same thing?
Have they?
We have to think about that. No, I'm
I'm
serious.
sure they have, and if
Somebody's
you
asked
really
you 5 times
out,
about something, let's make it into a business. I mean, hey.
absolutely.
I mean, that's a great point. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
And what challenges have you faced pursuing this? Just
I
being
think
a
that
content creator, influencer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my biggest challenge, and it's probably a me thing, is just balance. I don't even think there's a such thing as balance, but you still try to find it, being a mom, being a wife, now being a business owner myself, and then also still managing my own social media stuff as an influencer. It's really hard to fit it all in a day. It is impossible to fit it all in a day, quite honestly, and there is always some area that I feel like gets kind of the shorter end of the stick. For me as a mom, that area is never going to be my kids. Like, I'm just never going to let it be my kids. Speaking of kids,
I love that.
hi,
Oh,
Harper.
that's perfect.
My daughter.
Hi, beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Long and stunning.
Beautiful.
We were taking
my
down braids
goodness.
before this, and so that's what we're going to be doing after this as well. So, yes, my kids are never going to be the thing that get the shorter end of the stick. That's just not the mom that I want to be. So it does kind of feel like some nights I might be staying up till 3 a.m. to fit it all in because, I had to stop working to take down the braids or whatever. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for me. Also, just being a content creator, you would think that I would be used to it, like coming off of, actually, I'm going to go back. Whoop. Also, just like being an influencer and sharing so much of my life on the internet, you would think that I would be used to it coming off of my Super Sweet 16 and having been on a reality show, but people really think that they know me, right? And they kind of do because I'm authentic and there is one version of me, but I do get kind of off the wall questions, comments. I get people coming up to me and the kids in public sometimes, like, oh, I saw the video you did about XYZ.
Oh, wow.
That can be kind of tricky to navigate sometimes, like, especially because I guess sometimes I forget that's even a thing because I'm very much just living my life, you know what I'm saying? But that can be kind of funky, especially now as a parent.
Right. So what's your go-to thing to relax? What do you love to do to relax?
So I love playing tennis. I just got into tennis like a year and a half ago, but like I love it. It has become such a fun outlet for me, and there's also like a whole like tennis community that I am now in, which is a whole different conversation for a different day. But I would say tennis is one thing that I can always count on, like to get my mind off of work, off of motherhood, off of all the things. And so no matter what, like at least once or twice a week, I'm going to spend an hour or two out on the tennis court, because when you're out on that tennis court, like you really can't think about other things, because tennis is one of those sports where like you got to
focus.
So
Yeah.
I take tennis.
I love that.
What does success look like at this stage for you?
That is such a hard question. I think that for me at this stage, success looks like having the flexibility to fit it all in. And like, I know that's such an oxymoron because I just said that like, oh, it's impossible to fit it all in. But I think like having the flexibility scheduling wise in terms of having like help to fit it all in. So like for me, right, like what that means and what I've realized is that I need a maid and I need a chef, because I don't have the time to cook, to clean, to mom, and to work. And so like the things that I can hand off, I very much need to be able to hand off. And so I think that's like one thing that will be like a sign of success for me. And I'm not talking about like the housekeeper that comes like every week, because like, I mean, that's attainable for many of us. Thank God it is. I'm talking about like the housekeeper that comes like every other day and like does the laundry and all the things, because like in trying to find some semblance of balance in this crazy life, I've just realized that like, because it's impossible to fit it all in, we have to be able to get to a level of success where we don't have to try to fit it all in, because we have other people that are doing some of those things for us.
So, to the mother, to the wife who is struggling to believe that they are capable of achieving it all or having it all. I've heard you and I've seen you say that a lot on your social media that women can have it all. What do you say to the mom or to the wife who wants to have it all, but they're struggling trying to take that first step into doing it?
I would just remind that woman that there is a season for everything. I speak in seasons a lot because my husband actually plays professional basketball. So I'm often talking about, oh, this season, that season. And in using that word so much, it has become such a big part of how I think about everything, not really in terms of sports, but just in the way that life works. There was a season of life where all I did was hold sleeping babies who were nursing from my boob. And that's what I did. Like, that is all that I had the time, energy, and capacity to do. That was my number one priority. I am now in a season of life where I can leave my kids, with their grandmother for 3 or 4 hours and go and, attend this networking event. Everything in life is going to happen in seasons, and just because you're not in a certain season today doesn't mean that you won't be there in a year. And so it's very hard when you're in it, but remember that, just like the seasons change, in a blink of an eye, you will find yourself in the next season, and you will get an opportunity to pour back into yourself.
And how important is it for women to try to find themselves, would you say?
It is absolutely important. So I, like many of us, and again, this could probably be, we could probably do a third and a fourth and a fifth episode together because there's so many things we can get into.
Talk about this. Yeah.
Yes, but I, like many of us, feel like I kind of lost myself a little bit in wifehood and motherhood. Just that my husband's career and what that meant for our lifestyle and my kids and all of that, it just felt so all encompassing that I didn't really feel like I had an identity outside of that. Like, I was, this man's wife and I was these kids' mom, and that was kind of it. And there are so many things that we can go through in life that will leave us pretty much waking up one morning and realizing if I don't have that anymore, then who even am I? And I had one of those wake up moments where I woke up one morning and I was like, wait, who am I? If we strip all those things away, who am I? And so it is super, super important that you take the time to figure that out. Like I said earlier, everything in life is in seasons. And so it is okay if you're in a season where being a wife or being a mother or whatever maybe comes ahead of other things. But at the same time, always remember who you are, what you're passionate about, what you love doing below that as well, because there will be a time where you need to lean on it,
Yeah, I agree. And I believe we are all deserving of tapping into our purpose and into our passions, and we are deserving of it unapologetically. I think society has trained women into believing that you can only be a good mom and a good wife, and if you even have the audacity to tap into what your personal desires are outside of motherhood and wifeyhood, you're selfish. And so I'm just excited and I'm happy to see all of us trying to break that barrier and break that stereotype and say out loud that you can have it all. You can be a great mom, you could be a great wife, and you could be a great businesswoman. We can have it all. Yeah. So, I love this conversation, and I just love how we all continue to uplift each other and other women.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm feeling a panel coming on.
I love
feeling a panel.
You're on to something.
Feeling a panel kind of something.
I could talk about this all day. And it's because, too, Allison, we've also grew up seeing very successful men and powerful men in their respective industry. And so our moms and, Tamara, it doesn't matter if, who your dad is, but just seeing women always just take a back seat to their spouses. And so Again, we're just trying to do things differently and say that it's okay to step out there and put yourself out there and be big and bold and say, I want to do the damn thing too. But yeah, so I can see a panel coming. I could talk about it all day. Like, it's just Tamara and I talk about it when we get off. Once we get off the phone with you, I'm sure we're going to talk about the same thing. We love talking about empowering women and going for it. So good for you, sis. We see you.
Love that. Thank you.
Let's go into our next segment.
So one thing that stuck out to me earlier is that you said that your dad was very big about community and about taking people with you, and being humble. Some really, really great attributes and things that has, made you who you are today. What do you miss the most about him?
My dad was like a bigger than life personality. I think that we've all met those people where like you literally can't imagine them not being there. And so I think it's just like the presence, right? Like the feeling that you would get when like my dad would just walk into a room. And that, I don't know if that even makes sense for someone who, if you're someone who has not lost someone that is close to you, but I think it's just like his overall presence. Also, I will say, like, just me being honest, like being the baby, like I often feel like, for example, like my siblings, when my dad passed away, I was 20. So my brother and sister were in their like mid to late 30s at this point. And so there was a lot of kind of resentment in that, like, I lost him so early. So like I was just barely getting into adulthood. And so being the baby and like his baby girl, I also just miss like being able to call my daddy for stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just like the little stuff, like, oh, hey dad, like, can I have money? Or hey dad, like the car is doing XYZ, or, just like the day-to-day daddy's little girl stuff.
So how did losing him change your perspective just about life, about growing up or whatever?
Yeah, I think that losing my dad, first of all, that was the first, well, I lost my grandmother before my dad, but losing my dad was like the first, it still felt like the first like major thing that happened to me, like the first negative thing. I think that, we kind of all feel like we're supposed to lose grandparents. Like that's somewhat normal as you become a teenager, but like losing a parent, like that's something that literally shakes your entire world. I would say that it definitely showed me the importance of just taking advantage of the moments that we have with people, and ironically, like capturing content, because I love to look back at pictures of me and my dad. Unfortunately, just because of the time that we were living in there, we don't have a ton of videos of my dad. You know what I'm saying? Thankfully, I have my Super Sweet 16, but we didn't have video on our phones yet. You know what I'm saying? We weren't all just like recording video, and that's one thing that I wish that I had with him. And so that did kind of inspire me to start capturing moments. Like I even now will record videos of my mom, like with my kids and stuff like that. And I pray to God she doesn't go anywhere anytime soon, but I do know one day I will want to look back on this. They will want to look back on this. It's just so important to make sure that we capture those moments.
So you talked about like, the car's not working or can I have some money, but what are the moments really that you find yourself reaching for him?
So with me, it honestly usually has to do with my kids more than me, I think, at this point, because my dad has been gone. It was 15 years this April. So it's been a minute. And grief is a funny thing in that at one point you think my life can't go on, and then you look up and you're like, it has been 15 years and I have still been living. And so it's not something that I feel like necessarily impacts like every single day of my life at this point. However, it does still really, really bother me that my kids will never know their granddad. And they ask questions about him. We have pictures up and things, but they will never get to know him. And that's something that I won't say haunts me, but often I'm like, I kind of have this, it's not fair type of feeling. I think that would be the biggest thing when my kids, like seeing them get older, seeing them reach certain milestones, accomplish certain things. That is really when I miss his presence. And like, you know, both of them remind me of him in little different ways. And I know that he's with us, but I wish they were able to see him be with us, you know?
Right. Are there ever moments when you're just like, you know what, I am Charles Mathis's daughter. I can do this. I don't have to, whatever. Do you have any of those moments?
I have those moments very often. It's not even necessarily I can do this, but I have moments, me and my sister laugh about this all the time, where we're like, we're our daddy's daughters. Like we are so much like him that it's like hilarious.
Yes.
And I didn't, of course, realize it, you know, so much growing up, but like even like, I mean, not to like big myself up, but like sometimes I'll walk into a room and the way that people sometimes will react to my presence, I'm like, I'm my daddy's daughter, like, you know.
Period. So what do you think he would be most proud of today?
I think he would be extremely proud of me as a mother. I think that those two kids that I have would have him wrapped all the way around, you know, his finger, like they would get everything they want. But I also think, like, in this stage of me building my business, I think he would be really, really, really proud of that as well. I think that he would be really proud of me because, just to be transparent, like 6 months ago, I was job hunting. I was like looking for a job to work for someone else. And then, like I was explaining in kind of the birth of my company, I saw a lane and I jumped into it, and like that was my dad to a T, is like seeing a lane and jumping into it. So I think that he would be so proud of me for doing that. And I do think I would have more clients than I already have, because I think that my daddy would be telling everybody about it, but you know, we'll get there.
Absolutely. So, and what has navigating or your journey been like? I mean, has it been like, and you talked about grief is funny. Everybody says that. Everyone we talked to, on here about grief, they say the same thing, that grief is funny because it hits everyone differently.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your grief, what has navigating it from his death until now and then also into the future, how's it been?
I think that for me, losing my dad at 20 years old was probably the best and the worst time that I could have lost him. And I say that to say is that I was very self-absorbed at 20. I was in college. I had my own, trying to build my own life, my own stuff going on. And so, you know, my dad passed, and at that time in my life, I don't think I really had time mentally and emotionally to stop and process. Like, I have to go back to school for finals, and like, oh, like I'm an AKA, and like our charter day is coming up, ski of course, but you know, like, because, and I don't mean self-absorbed in like a really bad way. I just mean that like I had so much going on at that stage of my life that like I kind of just kept living, you know what I'm saying? And so I will say that this year, like I said, it was just the 15th anniversary of my dad's passing. And on the anniversary of his death, I feel like it hit me harder this year than it did when he originally passed, which is so weird to say. But I think like that this in some ways, like, being 35 and having my own kids, and then also kind of being like settled in some ways now, like I feel like I finally had time to like be like, oh wait, like that did happen. Whereas like I've just been in live and build mode, and you know, okay, you graduate college and then you get married and then you have a baby. Like I've just been going and going and going and going for the past 15 years, just because like that's how life kind of works when you're in that period of young adulthood, entering into, I guess, mid adulthood. I don't know what we're gonna call this age that we're at now, but living. I feel like this year I really just had the time and like the space to really feel it, and it was, I won't say that it was hard. I don't think that's the right word, but it was heavy. It was heavy, you know?
Yeah. What about explaining it to your kids? I know that you said they never met him, but you're trying to explain someone that's never been here. So was that difficult, or?
I don't think that they'll ever fully really understand, to be honest. Like, you know, okay, my son is a big Lion King guy, so we talk about it in the lens of like Mufasa.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know, in the stars with the great kings of the past, you know, it's like that whole thing. But to understand like how big of a man my dad was, I don't think they'll ever really get it. Because I think me and my sister often say when we're like talking about, you know, that time, we're like, what a time. Like, what a time it was to like be Charles Mathis's daughters and to live in Atlanta and to experience this. And I just think if you know, you know. If you weren't here, you'll never quite grasp it. And, you know, I do a really good job, I think, explaining like the man that he was as my father and like the man that he would have been as their grandfather, but like the man that he was to the masses, I don't think they'll ever quite grasp it, which kind of makes me a little upset, to be honest, like, because I'm like, oh, I wish you guys could like really understand, but you know.
Oh, wow. Well, you will help them understand because you are, again, Charles Mathis's daughter.
Yeah. Period.
So before we go into our next segment, what advice would you give to someone who is navigating grief? And then the second part is, what helped you? I know you've touched on it, but if you're thinking about helping someone else and giving someone else some advice who is navigating, especially a big loss of a parent or somebody close to them, what would you say?
I would just say take your time. There's no roadmap, and you will feel what you need to feel on your own time. I'm sure probably 15 years ago, there were people, I mean, I can only imagine wondering like, dang, like she's just going to go back to school? Like she's just going to, you know, whatever. Do what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? There's no answer book to this. There's no key. It is such an individual journey, and I would just say remember that your journey when it comes to grief is completely your own.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison.
Perfect. Okay. So Allison, what legacy do you hope to leave behind, and what impact do you hope your children feel from you?
When it comes to legacy, I hope to continue my father's legacy when it comes to humility, when it comes to community, and when it comes to uplifting others. I hope to be, you know, remembered as a person who poured in to others and gave others any knowledge that I have, like, right? Anything that I have had to personally walk through or experience, good or bad, I hope that I can use it to inspire and help other people. Like, I've had so many different things happen to me, and I don't want any of those things to be in vain, because I think that everything that we go through makes us into the person that we are and gives us something unique to share. And so I hope that that is my legacy. Like, okay, yes, she went through XYZ, but with what she went through, like, she inspired, you know, this person to then do this or then do that. So that would be the legacy. When it comes to my kids, I would say having a son and a daughter is unique, right? Because my daughter, I really want her to know that she can do all the things, that she can be multifaceted, that she can be wife, mommy, business owner, all the things. And my son, I hope that I am, I guess, teaching him how to love women, you know, and how to treat women, and how to, I guess, enable his future spouse to be all the things without how to be inspiring and how to be her biggest cheerleader.
Supportive, yes.
Mm-hmm. Support. That would be the word that I was.
That's another show too.
Yes, very much so.
Definitely another show.
We need to just.
It starts young. Yeah.
Literally, it starts so young.
It
And I love
does.
that you're thinking about
Yes.
his spouse, whoever he decides to be with, because
Yes.
it does start that young.
Yes.
Because they always put it all into the girls
Mm-hmm.
and never into the boys. So I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I will say, as a dear friend of yours, everything that you've described that you're doing, that you hope to continue doing, I see it, I feel it. You are exactly who you say you are. You know, the one, when I asked you to give me one word to describe you, in my mind, I was thinking audacious, audacity. You know, you do it.
Because we love that.
Yeah, and you do it fearlessly, because it takes a certain level of courage to step out and do the things that you continue to do. And we didn't even talk about it on this episode, but you had a brain tumor, you had a health scare, and all those things, you still rose, you still stood up, you still kept going, and you always had the audacity to keep going.
Yes.
And so just as a friend, being able to witness that, I am very proud of you, and you are inspiring a lot of women to do the same thing. And so keep going, girl.
One thing that I would just like say as we close up, like to women and to everyone, is like, you can't put a period where God's putting a comma. Like, life will continue. You may have to pause, whatever season you're in may require you to kind of pump the brakes for a minute, but that does not mean stop. Like, keep going,
Well,
And
you're coming back.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying she's coming back. We're not through with you.
Always coming back.
I wanted to end by saying, my mom, when she talks about your dad, and even when she continues to talk about him today, she will always say, Mariah, Charles never allowed anybody to see him sweat. Ever. He always had this very even-keeled personality. He, was just very astute and profound, and just very, not, and when I say matter of fact, he just didn't allow any outside noise to shake him. That's who you are. I've never seen you upset. I've never seen you rattle. And even when I knew shit was going on, you never allowed it to just consume you.
Yeah.
And so you get that from your father, hands down. And so, that's what I'll end with saying, you are your daddy's child, and he will be so proud of you, girlfriend.
Oh,
I need that. I need a little bit more of that, not letting people see me sweat, because I'll be ready to
That
pop.
part, girl. When I tell you Allison is the queen of, okay, like,
I love it.
okay, but watch me stand and watch me be bold and take this step forward.
I can tell you better than I can tell you is the thing.
Okay.
Just watch and see.
Just watch, and you don't even have to say nothing. You don't have to say nothing. So that's something that even viewers, girls, anybody who's watching this, sometimes you just let the shit roll off. Stand up, keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. Like, I cannot wait. Like, I'm serious about this panel. Like, I'm in my mind, I'm like, okay, we have to have something, because we want to hear more about your story. I know there's so much more, and you have so much to give to everyone. It's just, you're just a joy to be around. So don't ignore our call, Allison. We call
Never. Y'all know we're locked in. This is for life, okay? Like,
Absolutely.
We can do all the panels, all the events, all the podcast episodes,
Serious.
whenever. I am one call away.
Thank you, girl. It was a joy. Again, beautiful episode. Thanks for spending some time with us. I'm going to close this out. Thank you for joining into today's episode. I'm your host, Mariah.
And I'm Tamara.
And we'll see you next time on Born to the Game. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell your mama and them, and whatever Tamara likes to say at the end.
Wow.